Imagine walking into a company with all the right qualifications, all the right skills, and even a heart full of determination, only to be rejected, not because you weren't good enough, not because there wasn't an opening, but simply because of your name. That's exactly what happened to Emeka Nwachukwu. And yet, fate has a way of spinning stories. Because many years later, the same company that once laughed at his name would be begging him for help. But let's not jump too fast. Let me take you back to where it all began. Emeka grew up in a small town in eastern Nigeria. His father was a retired schoolteacher, and his mother sold food at the market. They didn't have much, but they gave him the one thing more powerful than money: education and faith. From a young age, Emeka dreamed of working in the corporate world. He wasn't chasing just a salary. He wanted dignity. He wanted to make his parents proud. After graduating with first-class honors in economics, Emeka polished his CV, dressed in his only suit, borrowed from his uncle, and applied for a job at one of the biggest firms in Lagos, Hamilton and Gray Consulting. This wasn't just any firm. It was prestigious, international, and the kind of place that could change his life forever. On the day of his interview, Emeka woke up at 4 a.m., rehearsed answers, and whispered prayers under his breath. By 7 a.m., he was already at the company's tall glass building, heart pounding. But the moment he introduced himself, things changed. "Good morning, sir. I'm Emeka Nwachukwu, here for the graduate trainee position." The HR manager raised an eyebrow. "Your name is... what again?" "Emeka Nwachukwu, sir." The man smirked. "That's quite a mouthful. Do you have an English name?" Emeka swallowed hard. "No, sir, just Emeka." The room chuckled. Some of the interviewers whispered to each other. One even said, "Imagine putting a name like that on our international proposals. Clients in London will think we hired a joke that day." Emeka wasn't rejected because of his performance. He was rejected because of his identity. He left the building, tears stinging his eyes, his mother's words echoing in his mind. "Your name is your crown. Never let anyone make you ashamed of it." The rejection broke him, but it didn't destroy him. For years, Emeka struggled to find work. Smaller companies offered him jobs but paid him peanuts. Sometimes he worked 2 jobs just to afford food and rent in Lagos. There were nights when he slept on the office floor, using his jacket as a pillow. There were days when he thought about changing his name to Michael or Edward, just to fit in. But deep inside, something stopped him. A fire burned within him. "If they can't respect my name, then they can't respect me. I'll make them remember it." One evening, while freelancing as an analyst for a small startup, Emeka noticed something. He realized many African businesses were losing foreign contracts because they didn't know how to present themselves internationally. That's when the idea struck him. Why not start his own consulting firm? It was crazy. He had no investors, no fancy office, not even a laptop of his own. But what he had was grit. He named the company Nwachukwu Global Consulting. Why? Because if people thought his name was too heavy, then they'd have no choice but to carry it. For the first year, the company struggled. Emeka worked out of cafes, libraries, and even borrowed office spaces. But slowly, word began to spread. He landed a small contract with a tech startup. Then a bigger deal with a logistics company. Then, a government agency took notice. Within 5 years, Nwachukwu Global Consulting became one of the most sought-after firms in Africa, partnering with companies across Europe, Asia, and America. The boy whose name once drew laughter was now signing million-dollar deals with that same name printed in bold letters across glossy contracts. One rainy morning, Emeka received an email. It was from Hamilton and Gray Consulting, the very firm that had humiliated him years ago. They were facing a crisis. A European client had pulled out of a major project, and their reputation was collapsing in Africa. They needed a strong local partner to save face. And guess whose name came up in their research? Nwachukwu Global Consulting. When Emeka read the email, he smiled. Life had just handed him the sweetest irony. The day of the meeting arrived. Emeka walked into the same glass building where he had once been mocked. Only this time, he wasn't the nervous graduate in a borrowed suit. He was the CEO of a global firm, wearing a custom-tailored outfit, carrying confidence in every step. As he entered the boardroom, some of the same executives were still there. Older now, but their faces instantly recognizable. "Mr. Nwachukwu," one of them said, forcing a smile, "we're honored to have you here." Emeka leaned back in his chair, letting the silence linger. Then, with a calm voice, he said, "I remember walking into this building years ago, seeking a job. I was told my name was too difficult, that clients wouldn't take me seriously. And yet today, you're asking me to save you, with that same name." The room fell silent. But here's where the story takes a twist. Instead of turning them away, Emeka signed the deal. Not because he needed them, but because he wanted to prove something deeper. He hired them under his terms. His company became their partner, but Emeka made sure every official document, every presentation, every press release proudly bore the name Nwachukwu Global Consulting. And the cherry on top? He insisted that the HR manager who once mocked him be part of the team reporting directly to him. Now, the same man who once laughed at Emeka's name had no choice but to address him with respect. "Good morning, Mr. Nwachukwu." Years later, when young entrepreneurs asked Emeka the secret to his success, he always said the same thing. Never let anyone make you feel small because of who you are. Your name, your identity, it's not a weakness. It's your brand, your power. Wear it with pride. Because one day, the world will respect it the same way you do. And with that, Emeka turned his pain into power, his humiliation into history, and his rejection into a story that inspired thousands. So, the boy who was once refused a job because of his name became the man who built an empire with that very same name. And in the end, the company that mocked him ended up working for him, because life has a way of flipping the script.